going to be an exciting webinar. We're going to learn a lot of things. We're going to learn about exactly how to win grants and government contracts from the USAID. After this webinar, I'm confident you'll have everything you need to know to be able to start winning some of these government contracts. So what I see, we have people from all over. We have people from Sierra Leone, Uganda, some people in the West Indies, Tanzania, oh man, all over. West Indies, Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So it's going to be a great webinar. I'm very confident in the material that we have. And let's go ahead and get started. We don't have too much time, but we do have a lot of material to cover because I want to teach you all everything you need to know to be successful and be able to win some of these government contracts. How we'll go about it, we'll go through the slides, and then once the slides are done, we'll do a Q&A section. A Q&A session at the very end, so you can ask me any questions you need to know. So we're teaching about the real steps to global development. The USAID is a global institution, and they give away a lot of money in forms of grants and U.S. government contracts. So we're gonna teach you the real steps to be able to win those steps. So I guess a little bit about me. My name is Jeremy Johnson. I'm a U.S. lawyer, focused primarily on international trade and development. I've consulted with entrepreneurs and lawyers and law firms all over the world. I have experience speaking on multiple continents. Recently, I spoke with the CARICOM, the Caribbean community, a couple months ago with their Caribbean Agricultural Week. And I spoke about how to get products from the Caribbean to the US. I've also done development projects all over the world. And I'm looking forward to presenting you all the material to be able to win contracts from the USAID. And I began my career at the DA's office for the city of Philadelphia. So this is a recent development project. This is a small micro development project that I was recently working with. This is in Ghana. This is in a rural community of Ghana. This is a small fisherman town in Ghana. It's a very micro project. The idea, I helped fund that statute. I helped with the surveying of the individuals in the community. I helped with the legal requirements of this and many other things necessary to put this statute. This is a 10-foot statute. And the idea is that this is close to many of the slave dungeons in Ghana, West Africa. And the idea is that we put it on Google Maps. And so the idea is that when individuals come to the slave dungeons, they also now coming to visit the statue. And now they come visit the statue, they're bringing increased tourism to this community. They're shopping at the local shops. They're also buying some of the goods from those individuals. So this is a very small development project, but this is what I've done. This was a couple weeks ago, maybe less than 2 weeks ago. We together were able to do this. I did it with many of the local chiefs in their region. And as you can tell, it was very well received and very well attended. And we're going to continue to help more development projects to help this community out. So it's important to know that development projects don't necessarily have to be massive. I mean, development projects are massive, but they also can be some small liberal arts types of development, because once individuals are coming to this town, now they're bringing money and now they're increasing the income and the wealth of this community. So it's uplifting. This is a development just dealing with art. So that's important. So, well, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover. I'm very excited about this webinar. I'm confident, as I mentioned earlier, that individuals all over the world, all over Africa, all over the Caribbean, the US, the Europe, will be able to understand how to adequately and successfully win some of these government grants and contracts. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll be covering the USAID basics, the laws, and registering with the USAID. You have to understand what the USAID is, and of course, how to register. If you don't register with the USAID, it's almost impossible to win a government contract. They want you to register with them. They want to know who you are. So we'll teach you how to register with the USAID and all the corresponding laws. We'll also teach you the types of awards. Most people talk about grants, but also contracts. And we'll teach you about types of awards and what to find the awards to actually apply for some of these awards. We'll teach you the best practices for submitting a winning bid to the USAID. I've had emails from individuals telling me they've been trying to win some of these contracts from the USAID, but they haven't been successful. But we'll teach you exactly how to be successful once submitting your bids and increase your chances of winning some of these bids, because it's a strategy to win these bids. This is the highest level of government contracts and grants. This is the premier leagues. This is the big leagues of government contracts. So it's important to have a systematic approach and be intentional. It's about winning some of these contracts, because there's a lot of competition for these dollars, and you can win. And we also teach you how to stay in compliance with the USAID after you win your award, because it's important to win the award, but once you win the award, the legal requirements and compliance activities you must do after you win the award. So there's a twofold aspect to it. So let's get into the USAID. What exactly is the USAID? The USAID is short for United States Agency for International Development. Some individuals call it USAID. I just call it USAID. It's short for U.S. Agency for International Development. Created in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy. And the latest statistics show that in 2020, the USAID spent over $22 billion in 2020. That was the latest data they released. But we saw that President Joe Biden, his budget request for 2022 was $27.7 billion, as well as we saw that his budget request for 2023 was $29.4 billion. So there's a lot of money involved in this, and I hope you all can be able to win some of these bids to be able to bring that dollars back to your community to help development and help change in that community. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. So let's get into the USAID's mission. The USAID's mission is to lead the government's international development and disaster assistance efforts. So in essence, the American taxpayer, they're taxed on their income, they're taxed on their purchases, and some of that money is set aside and goes towards the USAID. And once the money goes to USAID, then that money can then go towards projects, development projects around the world. And so their goal is to save lives, reduce poverty, strengthen democratic governance, help people emerge out of humanitarian crisis, and progress beyond assistance. So many of you all may be familiar with the USAID, so we won't go dive too much and deep into it, but it's important to understand that there's a lot of money set aside, and we're going to teach you how to find these government contracts and grant opportunities, and also be able to strategically be able to win some of these government contracts. So it's important to understand, when individuals talk about the USAID, they often only think that nonprofits can win some of these awards. That's not the case. The USAID, they work with both for-profit businesses and nonprofit businesses. So if you have an NGO, you can win USAID grant or government contract. If you're a traditional business, a limited business, LLC, corporation, whatever it be, you can also win some of these government contracts as well. That's very important to understand. Profit is allowed as well. So pretty much any business type that you have, there's room to work with the USAID. And places that the USAID work with, they work all over the world. They work all over the world. As you can see, they work all over the Caribbean, Latin America, they work all over Africa, the Middle East and Europe, India, all over the world. So let's break that down. They work all over. There's regions all over Africa. You don't have to necessarily write anything down. I do want to say that I'll send out these slides to you. I'll also upload the video to YouTube, and there'll be a link for you to be able to go to it. So if you click on it, if you look at the bottom left of the screen right here, there's the link to it straight to for Angola, or Benin, or Botswana, or whatever region that you're particularly in. There's a direct link to it. So when I send these out to you, you'll be able to click on whatever country you're in, and you'll be able to go straight to it. It's also important to know that if your country isn't listed here, doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. doesn't necessarily work in your country, because they do work in your country. For example, right here, they have the Eastern and Southern Caribbean. I actually went ahead and broke those countries down. So they work in Bahamas. I know a couple of years ago when Hurricane Dorian took place in Bahamas, USAID spent a lot of money in terms of grants and government contracts in the Bahamas, but they work all over. I mean, there's Haiti, there's Jamaica, I mean, all over. Middle East, Afghanistan is not listed, but they have done a lot of work in Afghanistan. Here, Afghanistan's right here, all over. I mean, there's the Republic of Congo, there's South Africa. There's many opportunities. So the best way to know if the USAID works in your country is just pretty much just Google USAID and your country name. It's all over. So for right here, let's look in Africa. For right here, you see South Africa, you see Botswana, but then you also see Southern African regional. So if your country is not listed, check the regional area, and you'll be able to see if they do work in your country. And you don't necessarily have to do work in the country that you live in. You can also do work in another country that's adjacent to yours, or any country that the USAID does work in. You can actually apply for some of those grants and government contracts and win. Types of project USAID fund. They will fund almost any project in essence. There's a diverse variety of projects, whether it's in education or training. It could be training development, it could be energy, clothes, It could be security. It could be public health, HIV, any type of medical illness it possibly can be. Natural disasters, and also progress beyond assistance. There's a lot of opportunity for individuals to do as far as democracy, as far as corruption, improvement, anti-fraud in elections. They do a lot of work. And in essence, it pretty much goes to that mission statement I talked about earlier. Anything that deals with saving lives, reducing poverty, strengthening democratic governance, helping with humanitarian crisis, and progress beyond assistance, there's opportunity for it. So whatever your service or product is, figure out how you can align it with what the USAID wants, and that increases your chances of winning it. So that's important. So as of right now, we talked about a lot already. We talked about the history of the USAID. We talked about where they work and the types of projects they fund. Let's talk about the law. I'm a lawyer, so I have appreciation for the law. And the USAID have laws as well. They're governed by the Code of Federal Regulations. That helps them with their grants and their government contracts. They also are governed by the Federal Acquisitions Regulations. If you deal with federal contracts in the US, you'll hear about the FAR a lot. And they pretty much just rules for when it comes to government contracting. The USAID also has their own internal policies as well. You'll come into contact with many of these once you win some of these awards. And there's the automated directive system, as well as the USAID acquisition regulations. So you'll hear about this a lot. So everything we talk about in this webinar are built on the foundations of these laws. And also their contract and agreement specific terms as well. So everything we talk about going forward deals with a foundational legal component. That's very important to understand. So, as I mentioned earlier, you have to register with the USAID. It's very important. You can know about the type of contracts they have. You can know about where they work. You know about many things, but you have to register with the USAID. They want to be able to know the companies they're working for, and this is how you do it. So if you're a US-based company, these are the steps you do. You have to have a real company. Your company has to be listed in the country that you live in or that you're doing business in. You have to have a unique entity ID. Then you have to create an account at login.gov account. Login.gov. You don't have to write any of this down. I'll send out the email slides to you. I just want you all to be able to watch this and learn, and to be able to learn from this. So then you register with your nonprofit or your company with sam.gov. So you create an account on login.gov, and that allows you to create an account on sam.gov. And then you can start bidding for some of these government contracts. But if you're not based in the US, it's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is that step 3, you have to get a NATO commercial and government entity code. That's really the only difference. They create but you have to have a real company. You can't just say I have a company. You have to be a real company. So they check if you are in Botswana or you in Jamaica, they want to be able to check with the registrar that your company actually exists with the company. It could be NGO, it could be a company, but whatever it may be. You want to actually have a company register on paper. That's very important. So you can apply for these government contracts, and if you win, but if you don't have it, these things that can potentially disqualify you. So to increase your chances of winning, you want to do these things. But the same thing, you'll create a unique entity ID. It replaces the DUNS number. The DUNS number is no longer being used for it. And then you want to register your company, create a login.gov account, and register your company at sam.gov. And there are 2 main company types. We're going to explore a lot of this later, but they're program managers. They're called prime contractors. And these are the main people that mainly win the government contractors. And then there are specialists, subcontractors. These people actually help the primes implement the things in that country. Say, for example, you are a country in, say, for example, there's a contract or a grant for the Congo, and there's a company that, the prime contractor that won that contract, they'll be looking for companies in the Congo to serve as subcontractors, specialists to help them implement that issue. If it's, it could be whatever. If it's like capacity development as far as youth training, they'll be looking for individuals with experience in youth development and training in the Congo to help them implement that. And these are some of the roles that you all can serve in, particularly if you don't have experience working with the USAID. So these are the steps, and all this stuff is free. That's the most important part. There are companies out there that are charging you to do this, and you can go to them. If it seems like a lot to you, you can pay someone to help you register it for you. But this is free, so you can go to your internet cafe, go to your internet, wherever it may be, and you can do this stuff yourself. So this is free. I want to make sure that this, you know, that this is free to do. 1 second, please. So the types of awards to win. There are two types of awards that you have the opportunity to win. Most people hear about the grants, but it's important to know that you can actually win contracts. It's very important. What's a government contract? The government contract is how the US works. The US typically, they generally don't have like a credit card where they just go purchase things, or a debit card or cash where you just purchase things. They'll put out a request for proposal. Say we want to buy helmets, or we want to buy textbooks, or we want to buy whatever. So we were looking for an accountant, a lawyer, engineering service to help us do this. So they'll put out a request for proposal, and then these companies will bid on these opportunities, and then they'll provide the service for the US, and the US will pay the company. The US, I guess they could go out and do it and buy these services themselves, but they don't do that. They put out a request for proposal, let private sector do the job for them, and then they reimburse the company, or they pay them up front, however they do it. So this is opportunity for government contracts. It was what I mentioned earlier. The US government buys products and services from contractors for the government's use. So it could be anything. So this is an example right here. There's a cost reimbursement contract for Citizens Network Foreign Affairs for job creation in the agricultural sector. This is a real government contract that came out. There's a multi-million-dollar government contract that came out. And what's important to note is this was a Citizens Network for Foreign Affairs, Inc. This was a team of organizations. So that's very important. When you're dealing with USAID, as I mentioned earlier, it's the highest level of government contracting. So the idea is that it's typically a team of individuals who will be involved in this. And they'll typically announce, as I mentioned, through a request for proposal. Now let's talk about the grants. Most people are familiar with the grants that USAID give out. So they do give out grants, and they'll announce grants opportunities through the notice of funding opportunity. So when you're dealing with the USAID, it's important to know to use the right language, to use the right verbiage, because you don't want to talk about contracts or request for proposal when you're really talking about grants. And you don't want to be using the words notice of funding opportunity when you're really talking about contracts. It's important to know the right language so you can be more legitimate in their eyes, and you increase your chances of having a good relationship with the USAID. And with grants, it's more of a limited involvement. They're mainly just providing the funds, but there's opportunity for that. So where to find the awards? That's very important. So we talk about a lot. We can talk about a lot. Where to find these contracts? You have to be strategic about how you go about it. If you're looking for government contracts, you go to sam.gov, www.sam.gov. And that'll show you where all the different contracts that the USAID has. When you go to this database, you will type in USAID, and that'll show you all the different current contracts that USAID has. If you're looking for grants opportunities, you'll go to www.grants.gov. It's very important you understand that. So you don't want to go to the other one when you're looking for something else. Then you can select the department for USAID, and that'll show you all the different current contracts that are available. And you want to pick one that's in your country that you feel like you can win. It's very important. This is about winning. This isn't necessarily about just trying to win. This is about winning. Okay, so we have the business forecast. This is crucial to understand. The USAID is different than most different departments. And that the USAID, they put out the government contracts ahead of time. They'll put out, so before they list it on sam.gov or grant.gov, they'll be on this link, usaid.gov/business forecast. It's very important to understand. And you want to check this and start planning to apply anywhere from 12 to these 6 to 12 months in advance. So you see a grant or government contract on here, you start getting your team together. You start strategizing, how can I win this government contract? So by the time it does hit and land on sam.gov or grant.gov, you're ready to apply day one. And you have a strong team, and you have everything you need in order. You have your documents, you have everything, you're ready to be able to apply and increase your chances of being successful. That's very important to understand. You want to start checking with usaid.gov/business forecast first, and then that'll allow you to be able to be ready for when they do become listed and active on these different places. And also prime contractors, individuals that are able to win these large USAID contracts, you can actually work with them, as I mentioned earlier, as a subcontractor. Say, for example, there's a company that that won a big contract in Jamaica as far as dealing with sanitation when it comes to water or whatever it may be. They'll be looking for companies in Jamaica to help actually specialists to do the work. So you can reach out to these prime contractors and say, I actually can help you do this. And you can start getting a significant amount of money to maybe do this, as well as a profit for yourself and your company. And this is encouraged by the USAID for new companies. If you haven't necessarily worked with the USAID, they typically ask that you be a subcontractor first under a prime contractor. And there are many things involved in teaming agreements and capability statements. We'll talk about a lot more about this later on, but this is very important to understand. These are all the ways to find awards that you can win for USAID. These are 4 different ways. All you need is one, but these are 4 different ways for you to be able to successfully win a US government contract. So it's all about strategy. It's all about having a plan and be able to act on that plan when it becomes ready. So as I mentioned, we talked about a lot already. Let's continue. How to win a USAID. There's certain, you want to read the entire document. So when a contract becomes available on sam.gov, you'll download it and read it. And certain sections of that document are more important than others. Now you want to read the whole entire thing, but some of these things can be anywhere from 35 pages up to 200 pages. They can be very long. So you want to be able to have a strategy for going about reading it and be paying attention to certain sections. For example, in government contracts, Section C is very important. You don't have to write any of this down. I'll send this out to you. Section C is very important. Performance work statements. Section L is very important for government contracts. Proposal instructions. They maybe call it instruction for bid submission. This is telling you everything you must do in order to successfully even have a chance at winning these government contracts. If you don't necessarily do this properly, you probably won't have a chance. Section M shows their evaluation criteria. This is how they'll look at your application. So when you're filling out the when you submit your proposal to the USAID, you want to ensure that you are aware of their evaluation criteria and be able to be mindful of that they're evaluating my company, they're evaluating our services this way. Let's ensure we have the highest chances to winning it by meeting all the evaluation criteria. And as I mentioned, you want to carefully read the entire solicitation. For grants, it's similar, but it's a little different. Section D is important. Application and submission information. This is telling you how your concept paper should be structured. It talks about the budget, talks about many things. Section E, the evaluation criteria. This is very important. That when you're reading these contracts, when you're reading these documents, they can be very long, as I mentioned. So it's important to pay attention to certain sections. Read the entire thing, but really understand certain sections. Evaluation criteria. This is how they will be evaluating your concept paper to see if you're actually capable of winning these contracts, as well as the different reporting requirements. In section H, lists other information. So let's look at an example. This is an example of a USAID government contract. This came out 2 days ago. It's for Zimbabwe. This is primarily about prevention and care and support services for orphans and children. They're all over the world, but this is the one that came out 2 days ago. It'll be due June 23. So this is 76 pages. This is a very long document. And they tell you a lot of things, but as I mentioned, certain sections are more important than other. Now you want to read the entire thing. Let's see what grants. I said application, section D is important. So let's click on section D. Section D is application and submission information. And it's telling you everything. It's telling you, submit a concept paper not to exceed the page limit. So it's literally telling you every single thing. They're gonna review it using a merit review. Many things. I mentioned section E is very important. So let's go to section E. Section E. Section E is very important. This is a criteria for how they're going to actually review your document. They tell you organization capacity. The people are very important. The technical approach is very important. They literally are telling you exactly how to do it. The reporting requirement. I mean, there's many things. I'm literally it's telling you exactly what you need to know. Federal reporting requirements. Let's see, reporting required, financial reporting, performance report. These are the different reports that you'll have to turn in to the USAID on multiple occasions. So your requirements for your soliciting. So let's just recap for a little bit. We've shown you where they work, USAID work in where USAID works in the world. What is the USAID? The laws that the USAID are governed by, what type of projects they find, where to find the different projects, the opportunities to bid. We talked about the important sections of it. Now let's talk about how you get the requirements for you submitting, the best practices for submitting and winning your opportunity for winning some of these government contracts. Ideally, you want to have a cover letter. A cover letter is a brief introduction about your company. It's very important that you have. These are things they're going to be looking for. Table of contents, as we saw here, they had a table of contents. So they're going to be looking for a table of contents. I mean, these table of contents. Acronym list. So if you're using acronyms, for example, you mentioned something like CARICOM, you want to at least put an acronym section saying CARICOM means Caribbean Community, or if you mention any type of thing, any type of acronym you're using. If you mention USAID, have an acronym list of USAID means United States Agency for International Development. You want to have that. They're going to be looking for that. Technical proposal. This is very important. How to plan and submit. How do you plan to provide a solution and your qualifications for providing that solution? It's very important. What is your plan and what qualifies you to implement that plan? As well as the budget. How much will it cost your organization to complete the task? And include your profit, because you can't include a profit in these government contracts. The USAID that allows you to include a profit for your company. So the technical proposal and the budget are very important. They will be the largest part of your solicitation, of your submission to the USAID. So we're going to spend some time exactly with the technical proposal and the budget. So let's talk more about the technical proposal and the budget. Let's talk about the technical proposal. Technical proposal is the executive summary. It's a 1 to 3 page summary of what is in the technical proposal. So if you're talking about the solar panels, you want to give a summary about how you plan to do this from a technical standpoint. Or if you're dealing with capacity development, what are the technical aspects of doing a building capacity development? Executive summary. You also want to have your technical approach. You want to detail clearly what program, service, or activity you plan to implement to solve the problem. It's very important. This may be the most important part of it. You want to have your management and staffing. You want to explain, talk about your organization. Talk about who you're partnering with. This is a team game. What companies are you working with? And your organization capacity. You want to mention things like your resume capability statement. I want to talk a lot about the capability statement very shortly, but these are some things you can do. If you have any recommendations, a letter of support, they're showing exactly what your company is about. Do that as well. Also, your work plan. Outline exactly how you plan to implement the activity. That's very important. The budget information primarily it's listed in section L, as I mentioned earlier. That's where you'll find a lot of information on budgets as far as from a contracting standpoint. And the budget costs must be reasonable. They must be incurred for the award, and they must be allowed by the terms of the award. So these are 8 sections of a budget, of your budget. Your budget should list at least these 8 sections: salary and wages, who are the people, how much they will be getting paid. Do you have any consultants? How much they will be getting paid? Fringe benefits and allowances. Are you providing them health insurance? Because you may have to provide them health insurance, depending on the quality of the health insurance in the country. The USAID may require you to use some of the money allocated to provide the employees health insurance. Will there be vacation days? Sometimes there are federal holidays in the country. Many things like that. Travel. Will there be flights going towards the location, or train trips going to the location or not? You want to include all of these expenses in your budget. It's very important. You must include this in your budget, because if it's not in the budget and the USAID see it, they may not allow that cost, that transaction. It's very important. If they're flying to the location, they're flying from Jamaica to Botswana, or Jamaica to Trinidad and Tobago, whatever it be. if you need that specialist, a consultant, or whatever it is, you have to put that in your budget. Equipment and supplies, will you be purchasing laptops, phones, pencils, or pens? As I mentioned, will you be hiring subcontractors and grantees? More than likely you will. That's what the USAID, they encourage you to bring in consultants and sub-grantees, and you all can serve as subcontractors and sub-grantees if you don't necessarily have experience working with the USAID. Other direct costs, training material, and also some indirect costs. So for example, if you're winning multiple government contracts, you can spread those indirect costs over in your budget as far as like office utilities and things like that. So you have an office that's doing 2 or 3 government contracts, you could charge the utilities and set as an indirect cost because it'll be spread across multiple projects. And again, the profit. And all of these things will be listed in a budget, but it's also important to know that it must be a budget narrative as well. So those, you have a budget, and then you also have a written standpoint of a budget, and called a budget narrative. So this is the budget narrative. The budget narrative will be explained in section L. It must be written. The budget is numbers, but the budget narrative must be written in English too. Everything has to be written in English. So the English isn't necessarily a strong aspect for you as far as writing. You can hire someone to help you write the proposal. It could be, you can have anyone, project management, lawyer, you have anyone that has written skills to help you with these things. And a budget narrative must clearly show why you chose those numbers. So this is an example of a budget. It lays everything out. The salary, fringe benefits, many things. Many things over a 5-year period. A lot of these USAID contracts, they're stretched out for multiple years. So you'll be able to show we're going to spend 20, 30,000 in this section, 100,000 in this section, $1 million in this section, and you'll see it all over years. And then this is a sample of a sample budget. Then you also see a budget narrative. For example, this is travel. See, this is changed to the budget narrative for travel. So consultant flights. This is an example of one. It'd be 15 round trip flights, $1,500 a piece. So this is an example. Per diem, we'll be paying $50, $150 for ground transport, $316 a day. So the idea is that you'll have this listing in travel, but then you explain it in your budget narrative. It's very important to understand the budget and the budget narrative are 2 separate things. As I mentioned, the reason you want to put things in your budget because if it is not in the budget, the USAID can what they could call cost disallowance. And that's probably the most common legal issue and issue that you'll find. The USAID, they certainly want to prevent corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse of the money because these are multi-million-dollar contracts. And so they want to prevent that. And so you want to be able to put everything in your budget because if they find out that you haven't, one, they could penalize you for it. You could never work for USAID again, or they could just not approve that it cost. And some of the common reasons you see cost disallowance is not doing business the way the USAID wants. Many times these are first-time contractors. They may not necessarily have may not be using the proper forms that USAID want, or may not be showing a clear ownership structure, or it can be last-minute purchases. Say, for example, you hire a subcontractor to bring laptops and equipment for doing training, and the person doesn't show up. So you have to make a last-minute purchase to buy the laptops, buy the different documents or whatever it may be. And then from that standpoint, you make that last minute purchase, the USAID representative or the contract officer representative or the mission director see that and they say, we didn't approve this last minute purchase. We're not going to allow it. So those are the things you see, many of the reasons why you see cost disallowance. So the solution is that to prevent them from not reimbursing the large expense, you want to have close communication with your mission director and your contracting officer representative. We're going to explain briefly what a mission director is, but you want to ensure that the mission director, if there's an American mission or U.S. mission in your country, You want to be very close aligned with that mission director and that contracting representative officer. I mean, that contracting or the award officer representative, because you want to be constant communication, because if anything comes up, you want them to be able to allow that purchase. It's very important. So if you're not an American company and you're close to submitting your bid and you have a chance of actually winning a grant or government contract, the USAID may do what they call a pre-award survey, a NUPIS, the non-US organizational pre-award survey. And that in essence, they just want to determine whether your organization has the legal, financial, and operational structures to handle an award. So what they'll do is they'll do a desk review. They'll review all the documents that you submitted, showing you legal structures and financial documents, policies and procedures. They'll do a review of all of that. And then they'll also do a site review. They'll actually go to your location or wherever your office is going to be, and they'll actually see how things are going, the operational structure. They may interview some employees, they may interview whoever it may be, they may interview it. So this can be a lot for you. So if you don't necessarily have a lot of strong experience, it may be best to serve as a subcontractor towards this as well. So they'll do a desk review and they'll do a site review as well. The NUPIS is very important because they want to ensure that the USAID can issue. They want to make sure that your company or your nonprofit, your NGO, is capable of handling a grant in the contract. Because I mentioned these things can be millions of dollars. So they drop you with a $2-3 million government contract. Will you be able to handle that? Will you be able to resist and not commit fraud, abuse, and waste? Like, can they trust you with this amount of money? So they're as I mentioned, this is the highest level of government contracting and grants. This is the highest level. So they're going to be very close with the money. They're going to scrutinize every single document, every single detail to ensure that you are actually able to handle this, because they want to trust you with this. But based on the past, there have been a lot of like waste, corruption with it. So going forward, they have these things in place to ensure that they're minimizing waste. So as I mentioned, if you're new subcontract, if you're a new person, you have not worked with USAID first. This is very important. If you haven't worked with the USAID in the past, it's probably best for you to work as a subcontractor. As I mentioned, there's a prime contractor who wins the award, and then that prime looks for subcontractors in that country to actually do the work, to be the specialist and implement it. Whatever it be, it could be HIV, it can be work training, it could be agricultural, it could be any type of thing, energy, food security, anything. They'll look for that. So that's the best way to be able to get it. And you get paid for that as well. I mean, you can make significant amount of money, and you'll get paid for that. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, I want to be your locally established partner. It's very important. So this is a good link to find many of those prime contractors. Click on this link. You go here. For example, this is dealing with the Agency for International Development, the USAID. These are all the people that won the government contract. It's a link. I'll write this out and I'll send it to you. A link goes here. For example, you can click on this company. They won almost $1 million. They signed a contract this month. So in January. So what you can do is you can view it. This is the company name. It's a US-based company. They have their phone number. They have their address. So you can even go to their website. I'm sure they have a website. I'm certain they have a website. You can go to their website, find their email address, and you reach out to them and say, hey, I have experience in this particular area. Let me help you implement the project as a subcontractor in your local area. Straightforward. So that's one way to find it. There's a link that lists all the people for the USAID. And there are many documents in the Development Experience Clearinghouse. Also a capability statement, that's very important. If you don't have a capability statement, you need to have one. A teaming agreement. As I mentioned, USAID contracts is a team sport. I can't say that enough. It's a team sport. If you're as a company, you will be competing against groups of companies. It's very important to understand. So if you apply for a government contract by your company by itself, you're at a disadvantage because you'll be competing against teams of companies, and they'll sign a teaming agreement. They'll sign a teaming agreement, and they'll apply for the government contract. So the USAID, from that perspective, there's going to be a lot of people applying for these government grants and contracts. But if there's a team, a strong team with multiple companies that can all do all the work, and then it's just you by yourself, or you and your company by yourself, they're going to go with the team of companies, more likely than not. Not always. There are some individual contracts. More likely than not, they're going to go with the contract. That's why I mentioned that you must have a real company, and you must look at the business forecast. The business forecast lists the different contracts 6 to 12 months in advance. And from that standpoint, you can start building your team to collectively apply for some of these USAID contracts. It's very important. You can serve as the prime, but it's often recommended if you don't have experience working with the USAID to serve as a subcontractor. So this is a capability statement. Capability statement is similar to a resume. It's like a resume, but it's different. It doesn't look like a regular resume. This is a sample one. This is a sample capability statement from the USAID. This is for a company called Hope Ethiopia. They combat HIV/AIDS in their region. So this is how it's structured. It's very important for you to know that your thing should look like this. It shouldn't look like a regular resume. It should be one page. It's very important. It should be one page, and it should look like this. The core competencies. For example, they have programming centered around spreading HIV, prevention, prevention of mother-to-child transmission, many things. Their past performance, that's very important to understand. With USAID is different in most places. The USAID, they want to see your past performance. They want to see your past performance. They don't necessarily care about what you can do. They want to see, have you done it in the past? That's crucial to understand. They want to see your past performance. So this company listens to their past performance, whether they've done training, capacity building, whatever it may be. And the differentiators, what makes them different. And the organization data is very important. They have the name, the company, the email address. And what I like right here is that they're a registered NGO in Ethiopia. So if you're a company, you're seeing that, USAID seeing that, you know they are a locally established partner. They're going to be here for a long time. They have ties to the community. They actually can do the work in Ethiopia because they're locally registered in Ethiopia. They're only saying it right out front. We were actually registered in Ethiopia. So I like this a lot. Only thing I would add is maybe some NATS codes. So whatever your NATS code is, if you're dealing with early childhood education, add that NATS code. If you're dealing with tourism, add that NATS code, engineering, so on and so forth. So as I mentioned, what you want to do, if you're a new company or a company that hasn't worked with USAID, you want to pitch to the prime. I showed you how to find the companies, the names, the email addresses. You could just look these companies up and find their information. Find that website, reach out to them, send them an email, and you want to say, I could be your local company to help you implement a product. So if you're in Ghana, reach out to some of these massive companies and say, I'm a Ghanaian company, I can help you implement the product as a local company. And so in order to be a local company, as I mentioned, are you actually registered and organized in that company? Is your principal place of business there? A majority of the individual citizens are lawful residents of that country. These are very important to understand. And why I recommend being a subcontractor starting out is because it can be expensive to be a prime. It can be very expensive because oftentimes the money doesn't necessarily come right away. If you win an award, that's excellent, but the money may not come right away. And it can be a year or 2 years. There may be funding delays for you to get the money. There could be trouble in the local country, the host country. So they may not issue the money right away until things calm down. Also, it can be very expensive because you have to hire many people. A proposal writer, you may want to get someone who has experience writing proposals, proposal editor, a team lead, a recruiter to help build your team, because this is a team thing. You will be competing against companies that have 7, 8 different individuals, 7, 8 different companies coming together as a team. Who's going to interview those potential partners? Who's going to create a budget for you? Many things. External consultant. I mean, trips when you go to the field location, or will you actually have a full-time staff in that particular area? So it can be very expensive to apply for this. And there's no guaranteed chance that you may win. So the best thing to do, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have experience, is to go to the company, that has a history of winning and say, I want to be a local established partner in that particular area. And I mentioned these are what it is to be a locally established partner. These are actual buzzwords. These are words that are important, that they will understand what these mean. In essence, you want to have, I would be at least country, I would have been in the country at least for 5 years. And I can show that I would be in the country for a long term. There are many other requirements to this as well. That you have links to the local community. That's very important. So if you are in Trinidad and Tobago, can you show that I actually have links to the actual Trinidad and Tobago community? Or you in whatever, you are in Thailand, I have links to actual locations in Thailand. And this is a sample email outreach. Very simple. This is very simple. You can find an email address online. You go to one of these company websites, and then you go to their contact us. You can just submit something. This is an example. For example, you can say, hello, my name is Fatima Berry. I'm the CEO of Sunrise Solutions. We focus on whatever it may be. You can focus on training development capacity. You can focus on economic development. You can focus on HIV prevention, solar engineering, whatever your particular field is, you have that in there. So for example, my name is Fatima Berry. I'm the CEO of Sunrise Solutions. We focus on training and capacity development. In the USAID business forecast, there are 2 future USAID grants or contracts in Sierra Leone pertaining to services, and we would like to discuss a strategic partnership with your organization. We have been a legally organized Sierra Leonean business for 7 years, and we are confident that we can serve as a local established partner. I've attached my capability statement and PowerPoint presentation for your review. Kind regards. This is only like, 4 sentences, but it says a lot. It says who you are, what service you provide. Then maybe most important, it tells them that there are actual projects that I can help you on. In the USAID business forecast, it's important. They use the business forecast. They didn't say there's currently one available. They're saying there's one is upcoming. I can help you with this. It hasn't launched, so when it does become active, we're ready to apply day 1. We have been legally organized, so we're a real company in Sierra Leone, and we can serve as your locally established partner. And then they mentioned the capability statement. You're using all the different language, all the different verbiage they're looking for. And the ideal is that you want to get this done. You have a meeting with the business development team. It's very important because you can do good and you can create change in your entire region, your entire village, your entire town, entire city, entire country by just following some of the best practices when it comes to that. I mean, if you saw it, the USAID gives out billions of dollars, billions per year. So it's important to be able to win some of this because it actually can cause a lot of change and cause a lot of positive impact for the entire world. I mean, this money comes out of the American taxpayers' money, American taxpayers' income, and some of that goes towards the USAID to create projects all over the world. And you all can win some of this. So when you actually have the opportunity to win a contract or a grant, you will be negotiating with the USAID. For example, will you be exclusive or non-exclusive? Can you work on other contracts? You want to be able to clearly define what your role. You don't want to do more or less than what you are told is you're supposed to do. The budget, you want to get compensated for the things you're doing. There may be an additional agreement. There may be a pre-teaming agreement, and then there may be a real team agreement once you actually get an opportunity to win the award or grant. And when you're dealing with your agreements from a legal perspective, you want to have a confidentiality provision because you don't want the person you're working with to be able to tell everything. You don't want them to tell everything that's going on in your company. You don't want that. But you don't want to have your provisions so airtight that you block out whistleblowing activity. The USAID encourages individuals to report fraud, waste, and abuse. So if your confidentiality agreement is too airtight or too overly well written, you can potentially block out whistleblowing activity. And USAID wants to encourage individuals who are reporting corruption, waste, and fraud. So that's very important to understand. And also staffing. Like, will you be a full-time local staff, or will you be flying back and forth, short-term staffing? So this is a timeline. I mean, as I mentioned, the business forecast is very important. 6 to 12 months in advance. You want to do that. 6 to 12 months. So you'll start finding your team, and then you start signing a teaming agreement. So when the grant or the contract is available, day 1, you want to be able to apply as soon as you possibly can. You want to be able to get it out. I mean, there's no pressure. You want to get it out before the deadline, certainly, but they give you the business forecast in advance to let you know, to build your team, to build the best team you possibly can to be able to apply for when it does become active. And so you look at the business forecast, you have your team, you're applying, you're negotiating, and you won. Those are the steps you want to take towards successfully winning a U.S. government contract. And if you don't win, all is not lost, because you can do a debrief. A debrief is pretty much someone from the USAID who actually looked over your application. They'll review the application with you, and they'll tell you why you didn't win, and they'll show you the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal. So this will be beneficial. If you don't win, you can always do your debrief, and the debrief helps you improve going forward, write a better proposal going forward next time, as well as have some clarity when it's done. So whether you win or, and this is also going to be done if you won as well. So whether you win or lose, I highly recommend you do a debrief, because if you win, you want to ensure that the things you did were intentional and that you actually won for a reason. So that'll still let you know the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal. So after the award, you have your award agreement. So this is very important. So everything up to now, we've talked about how to win. But there's two components to it. There's before you win, and then there's after you win. After you win the USAID contract, there's still a lot of requirements that you have to do as well. So you'll win your award agreement, and that's a legal document between you and in essence, you and the U.S. government. You want to read it thoroughly, and it'll discuss many things. It'll discuss both your roles, it'll discuss the statement of work, inspections, deliverables, many things. And you also get to meet the actual USAID officers for the first time probably. You'll meet the agreement officer. If it's for grants, you'll meet the contract officer if you want a government contract. And you also meet the representatives as well. And then you also probably will meet the mission director. That's the primary officer in the mission in the local country. But it's important. So you'll probably meet some of the higher ups in the USAID pertaining to your particular grant or government contract. And it's very important that you have a good relationship with them. You want to have a strong relationship with these officers. Open door flow of communication, because you don't want to get in bad rapport with them. You want to ensure that everything in your budget get approved. You want to ensure that everyone you work with get paid. You want to ensure that you actually can do positive work in that country. You want to be able to do positive things in that particular country that you're actually doing work in. What's the difference between the contracting officer and the mission officer? The contracting officer or the agreement officer primarily is about the terms of the contract or the grant. They make the most important decision regarding the contractual performance. The mission officer, they determine the things, they handle things that are within the country. So if you need to change your term, then your grant, your contract, talk to the contracting officer. But if you need maybe last minute purchases or you need last minute decisions within the country or approvals, you want to talk with the mission officer. Now you want to have open dialogue between both of these, but those primarily are the difference. And there is a mutual relationship. As I mentioned, these USAID grants and government contracts, they are aspects of US foreign policy because they're dealing with taxpayers' money. And so you keeping the contractor officers informed on what's going on, particularly on the grounds, local levels, is an aspect of a foreign policy. And that's what I consider is very important. So, and after you win, there'll be a conference. This is where you start meeting the people. You start meeting the people for the first time. And they'll tell you everything you need. They'll talk about the different reports you must do. Because I mean, when you win an award, the work really begins. Now you'll be compensated for it, but you'll win some of these. I mean, you can be compensated subcontractor. You can be compensated for 6 figures easily, but you have to have things in order to be able to be a subcontractor to one of these primes. And we talked about many things you can do to increase your chances of being a subcontractor. But these are some of the requirements they'll expect of you. They'll expect you to do quarterly reports or whatever. They'll expect you to do financial reports and invoices. They expect you to do a lot of reports for monitoring, evaluations, and learning. They expect you to do a lot of things. Branding is a big requirement of USAID as well. I'm sure you all have seen the brand of the USAID all over the world. Our branding is a big part of it. And some of the questions you'll have to ask them as well. Some of the questions you ask, how will you be paid, or will you be reimbursed after you make the purchases? What USAID person will review your deliverables? That's very important, because once you find out who this person is, you want to start talking to this person, becoming on good terms with this person. Audits, we have to pay taxes on the awards, because sometimes there are different agreements, in the local country, the host country, they may have requirement that you pay taxes on. It could be taxes on not on necessarily goods, but it could be taxes on the services. It may tax the profits that you may make. It could be anything. You just ask the USAID officer, will I have to pay taxes on the award money that I get? And then how often do you speak? Should you speak with the agreement officer representative or the contract officer representative? So financial reports are required. You must notify USAID 75% of your when you're close to spending 75% of the money. We're coming to a close, so I appreciate you all's participation in this. But you have to fill out the financial reports for government contracts. It's the SF-270. That's what you have to do. SF-270 and the SF-1034. That's typically applies to contractors. And grants is the SF-425. So you want to talk to them and say, when do I have to file these? Do I have to file them annually? Do I have to file them quarterly? What particular aspect of frequency do they expect me to be able to file these in? And then also a foreign tax report, because like I said, you may have to pay taxes. So this is the SF-270. This is how it looks. The name, all the information, expenses, many things. This is how it looks. This is the SF-1034. The service you provide, the quantity, the cost, many things like that. And this is for the grants, SF-425. Cash receipts, many things like that. So you'll tend to submit these. And then progress reports. You must show progress reports. This is important because USAID want to be able to tell their story or the positive things that are happening. So you will create either you want to talk to your representative, USAID representative. Should I submit these twice a year, once a year, every quarter? And you can include stories, photos, graphs. You want to show the progress things. You want to show the things you've done, as well as you want to be able to show like the lessons learned. Like we learned this is what we thought was going to happen. It turned out it didn't happen that way, but we became better for it and we improved. We learned from this. You want to address USAID's feedback from previous reports. If one of your previous reports, they say you need to do this going forward, you want to be able to show that you did this. And I mentioned it must be well written in English. You can have someone to help you write it. You want to have someone who actually has a strong language of English language, or a project manager, a lawyer, or there's anyone. I mean, a teacher, anyone that can actually write well for you. You want to be able to get that person to do that. So that's all I have. I hope you all have learned a lot in this. It's an opportunity for a Q&A section. Just raise your hands and we'll get to it. But in the process of this, you've learned a lot. I mean, you've learned a ton. I mean, I'm confident this is an excellent first step that you all should be able to be able to go forward and should be able to start applying for some of these government contracts. You know how to, you know what the USAID is, you know what type of projects they work on, you know where to find the different opportunities to apply. You know about capability statements, you know about prime versus subcontract opportunities, you know about different budgets, you know about, I mean, you know about a lot. And I hope you all found some value in this. And I will have the recording online, so please feel free to share this. And if you have any questions with me, send me an email at info@globallaw.tv or gj@globallaw.tv. But it's definitely been a pleasure to have you all. So let's get to the Q&A section. Okay. All right, Marjorie, I'm gonna ask you to, Marjorie Beezer, tell us, state your name and state where you're calling from, what country you're in. So I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Hi, good morning. Marjorie Beezer. I'm in Folsom, California, but actually I'm from the Caribbean. So
okay,
that's normally my point of reference. Great presentation.
thank you.
You talk fast.
I do. My apologies for that.
But the information was extraordinary. My question is this: is there a preference for USAID with regard to the organizational structure of a company? Let's say, for instance, a sole proprietorship versus a partnership versus an LLC. Can a sole proprietor be competitive within the context of USAID?
Sole proprietor from a legal standpoint, it's the default legal entity. It's not really a real entity. Ideally, you want to be organized as a real company. It can be whatever. It could be in the U.S. LLC is a default. S corp, those are good. C corps are good. So you want to ideally the sole proprietor. It is a default is that you haven't registered in the state of California. You haven't registered in that particular region. Whatever it may, you don't have a real organization. So you certainly want to ideally be an LLC or S corp or something like that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great presentation again. Wow.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay. Let's see what we have. See that world. Let's state your name and where you calling from.
Yeah, it's thank you. It's Kadap, CADP, Kadap World.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm currently in Dakar, Senegal, but my business headquarters is in Sierra Leone, and also we have a registered business in the US.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I've been following your online presentations, and I'm happy to be here, and the presentation is good. And keep well.
Thank you, sir.
So my question is, there is currently a project for Sierra Leone that has been announced, and we are trying to get on SAM.gov as a US registered company, but also get some partners as well on SAM.gov, and there are local businesses that we want to team up with, as you have advised. And the timing is one of the things we're looking at. How do we get help to do that as fast as possible so that we get the contract in? That is one. Two, we just realized that the contract is good, 3.5 million, but the requirements in terms of, meeting that business is way more than even $20 million. How do you go for a government contract in the US? And let's assume you win that contract, but also access maybe US Exim funding because there are financial gaps within the contract, but you really want the contract as a start. So that is the question I have.
Yeah, that's a very important consideration. If you feel like the work will be too much more than what you'll be getting paid for, it is not a contract you want to apply for. You don't want to apply for a contract where you don't feel like you can make a profit off of, particularly if you're in a company, particularly if you're in business to make money. You definitely don't want to apply for one of those different contracts. But you may have to cut some costs, or maybe have to get some people to negotiate on their fees or however it may be, and be able to apply. But definitely don't apply for one where you don't feel like you can make money off or make a profit off of it, because you definitely want to do well by doing good. That's one of the mottos that I tend to have for the development I've done throughout my life. You want to do well by doing good. But if it's already active now, you may just have to that's a difficult one. That's why it's stressed. Like, look at the business forecast. So you have your team ready. So when it does become active, you want to be able to apply right away. So you don't have to, so it's already active. You're building your team. You'll be competing against people that already have a team already. I'm not saying don't apply. I'm not saying don't find your team, but a lot of that, reach out to some individuals that may have done work in the USAID. I put that link up there to show you the different companies. So maybe reach out to the company and say, hey, have you done work in this company? This is a service that I offer. I can help serve as a subcontractor to help you win this contract. I think those are some of the best avenues to reach out to companies that have won it and try to join their team, as well as continue to look at the business forecasts and apply. Because worst come to worst, you can always do a debrief with someone from the USAID, and they'll tell you the strength and weaknesses of your plan. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Okay. Gerard, I'm gonna ask you to unmute, and then we'll do Chantel. Gerard, state your name and where you're from. Okay, we may not have Gerard. Okay, Gerard, who do we have?
All right, I just want to, it's not really I'm requesting, I've been working or attending to this meeting, so I've been inconvenienced. And I was asking if you can share this, the slides that you were sharing. How can we access them so that we can read by ourselves without really getting inconvenienced?
Yes, I'll email them out. If you register through global.tv/webinar, if you register for the webinar, you'll get those slides. I'll also, if you did not register, send me an email at info@globallaw.tv. I'll put it in the chat. But yes, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Zambia.
Zambia. Okay. Send an email to here, and I'll ensure that you get the slides and the link to the video.
Okay, so let me do that right away, just in the chat option.
You want to send an email to there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Gerard. Chantel, you state your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning.
Bonjour.
Good morning. My name is Chantal Elizabeth Baukisa Kinzonzi. I'm calling from Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the United States of America. I'm originally from Democratic Republic of Congo with roots in Congo, Brazzaville. My question is this one. I might miss a deadline tonight about a US USAID mission with African Union regarding a project for 1 year for nutrition as food security for a year. The reason is I'm unable to download the 424 form, the 424A and 424B. Is there a way you can help me with that one? I don't know for a reason. I'm a winner in 2019 from US Embassy in Congo Brazzaville for US tax award recipient. I was the only reason I wasn't able to cash the money because of COVID. I have to come back, but I'm familiar with the form, and it was through USAID. And I wanted to relaunch the same program because it was about training 100 female and youth in agriculture using the YALI, Young African Leadership Initiative of President Obama, a program. I wanted to launch it, and I'm unable to download the form. I'm stuck. The deadline is tonight.
Oh man, Yali, that's a part of USAID. But we weren't really talking about something that specific, particular contract. But you just send me an email. I think I might be able to help you. Just send me an email at global.tv. I think I might be able to help you with that.
A little contribution for those who are in Africa, if you're not able to download the SAM.gov, because at the time I was in Africa, I have difficulties. The best way is to go to the US Embassy. They will help you out. But the time I have to finalize it, I have to come back because of COVID. Sometimes people struggle to register on SAM.gov. And now that they have the change, because with the project that you mentioned, the example with the African art craft, this is a new one I'm doing too, but I want to do that NGO. Now, can you apply like having an NGO in Africa? And here I have a profit. I want to do, can I do that with USAID and have a chance to get some funding? Or should I do NGO with that and profit with something else for government contracting? That's really, really important.
Yeah, you should be able to apply for either. A lot of it is based on your past experience. Like, you have experience in a particular area. So I don't think that should be a problem.
Okay.
But let me move on to the next caller. Thank you so much, Chantel. Okay.
Thank you. Very informative and resourceful.
Okay. Ajua, let's ask you. You have a question.
Hi. Good afternoon from Ghana. And I'm really glad to be part of the session. I am totally new to it, so for me, it's been very helpful. I would like to know, yeah, you made it despite the ill health. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so
I would
much.
like to know so I have 3 questions, please forgive me.
Okay, let's focus on one question. We have a lot more people, so if there's more time, we can come back around to you. Let's focus on one question. 3 questions is a lot.
All right, okay. So you mentioned that the prime contractors have to be companies that will usually team up together. So if you are if you're looking forward to becoming a subcontractor, do you also have to be a company? And then do the subcontractors have to team up as well?
That's That's a great question. Answer is
The
no, you
lady
can be
also,
individual. Go ahead.
the lady also asked whether sole proprietors are allowed to be prime contractors. I am more interested in are sole proprietors allowed to be subcontractors?
That's a great question. For a prime, you don't want to be a subcontractor at all. But for a subcontractor, you can be a sole proprietor. That is possible. It just depends on everything. Is very fact specific. Ideally, you want to be a company. Ideally, because that means you're registered with the USAID. Ideally, but it just depends on what their prime. So you reach out to a prime and say, I'm a sole proprietor. I can help you with this amount of service. This service in Ghana, I can do it. I'm the best at it. You can use that sample email I sent out. I showed you all earlier. And they can bring you a part of their team because you'll be with the prime. You'll be under the prime umbrella. So you can work as a sole proprietor in that perspective. Ideally, from talking to a lawyer, ideally you want to have a legal protection of your own company to protect you personally as well. But either one of those works well. But as far as being a prime, working directly with the USAID, because the subcontractor reports to the prime contractor, the prime contractor reports to the USAID. So the prime will shield the subcontractors. But if you are working directly with the USAID, you have to be a real company, 100%. But ideally, the best chances is to be a company, a local company in that country, because you'll be marketing yourself and saying, I'm a local company. I'm a locally established partner in this country. And one way to best do that is be a real company. They'll take you a lot more seriously if you're a real company. But doesn't necessarily have to, but your chances of being a subcontract increases a lot, particularly on the USAID level, because this is the big leagues. This is the highest level if you are a real company. So I certainly recommend you being a company. Okay, let's go to the next question. I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself. State your name and what country you're from.
Hi, my name is Naina Vira. I'm from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and I hope you'll feel well very soon. And thank you very, very much for your very informative webinar. I've been working for NGOs for many years, and it mostly is CDC USAID funding. So most of the terms and the requirements you were saying, they were all very, very familiar to me. But well, learning, there's never end to learning, right?
Okay,
You always learn new things. So my question was about disallowable costs. You said, okay, we can't do any last minute purchase. Like suddenly you find to have a lab equipment, one is broken, so you need a new one suddenly, or suddenly you need to buy a vehicle for a new region or something. So even if it's budgeted, it will not be allowable, or do we have to talk to the mission director for that?
Well, no, I was giving some examples of some of the reasons cost disallowance occurs. If you have a close relationship with your mission director and your contract office representative, they'll understand these things. But oftentimes, individuals or companies, they'll get a cost disallowance, and they don't necessarily know why, and they want to hire lawyers, they want to create a dispute. But the idea, I was just saying that some of the most common reasons, doesn't mean it happens all the time, but some of the most common reasons is not necessarily following right properly, and also last minute purchases. If it's something simple, it's probably unlikely. But if you're spending a couple $100,000 on a last minute purchase and you haven't really addressed it with USAID, that can increase your chances for getting cost disallowance. Doesn't necessarily mean it will, but that's why it's important, as I mentioned, to ensure communication with your mission director and your representative.
Okay, thanks. And I was just asking if I had a personal business. You said we can ask for the funding or some for USAID. Can we do that? Can we just send an email, or there has to be a very certain, or we can start as a subcontractor?
It's best to start as a subcontractor. You said you have a lot of experience working with USAID, so that helps a lot. But I do think it just depends on how big of a contract you want to win. If it's a personal business for yourself, you can start as a subcontractor. You have the experience, you have the know-how. You've been doing it in Tanzania for a while. So I definitely think you are probably best to reach out to some of these big prime companies for subcontractors. And you can send me an email, and I think I might potentially be able to help you with that. But you certainly want to have a company, and you can. I think you're ready. Certainly as a subcontractor, because you said you have experience working with USAID.
Okay, thank you so much. I love listening to you and to the information you have shared is very, very valuable. Thank you so much for that. And I hope you feel better very soon. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, Ken Black. State your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, hi, my name is Kenneth, and I'm calling from Ghana.
Okay.
Well, I want to know, to what extent do you need legal representation in making your application? I mean, since there are contracts involved, to what extent would you need a lawyer to assist you? Seeing that you're a lawyer yourself, how pertinent is the requirement of a lawyer essential, in the whole process? Thank you.
Sure. I mean, a lawyer plays a very important role. A lawyer deals with everything is dealing with contracts. The FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, is a legal requirement. You'll be negotiating your contract with the USAID. You'll be doing a teaming agreement with other different companies. So a lawyer is very hands-on and involved with that. So a lawyer certainly would help you in this process. You don't necessarily need one. You can do it on your own, but it's certainly recommended that you lean on the expertise of individuals to help you to do this, because the amounts are so large, and that the lawyer can be brought on your team as a consultant as well to help you continue to look at the reports, helping you draft and edit those different things as well. That's the next person. State your name and ask you to unmute yourself. And where you're calling from.
Hello, team.
Yes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. My name is Tetenyo Koda from Ghana. Nice to be part of the program. I'm a teacher by profession and a leader of a non-profit organization. As one of the participants said it, to register on the USAID platform in Africa is very, very difficult. And then she suggested that we should travel to the US Embassy for us to get support to be able to do that. But for example, let me take the examples of Ghana. Ghana is a little bit large. Let's assume you are living in the north. So we'll be able to travel to the north to Accra just for support to create your account on the USAID platform. So that's one aspect I want to explain to you who are in the developed countries to help alleviate those kind of challenges. My question will go to you that in seeking for funding, some of the time as a nonprofit, you are a startup, you don't have the fund. But when we approach you, the professional, to help us, the cost of your services is very, very high, which even if I get it, I can use it to support more than 500 children in Ghana. So I'm like to know the costs of your services and the other aspect of your services to the nonprofit sector, especially those who are part of your program today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a good question. If you send me an email, I can discuss exactly what you want me to do, and we can discuss my fees from that perspective. I tend to not discuss that on a public platform, but ideally for you, if a lawyer is too expensive for you, is to serve as a subcontractor. You can reach out to a prime, saying you reach out to a subcontractor saying these are the services I can provide to this prime contractor. And with that, then you can help them negotiate the services, whatever your fee is, to with a subcontractor. But if you want you negotiate your fee as a subcontractor to the prime. So you have any more other questions, just send me an email at gj@globallaw.tv. All right. Darwin Blanco, we run out of time. So quickly, just state your question and where you're calling from, because we're running out of time. So let's get to these as quickly as we can.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Darwin Blanco. I'm calling from Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Belize. I just wanted to know, as a vet, are there any kind of incentives for vet through USAID and the different programs they may have in Central America region? Yes, that's an excellent question. I didn't talk about that. There's a lot of opportunity for veterans. One thing in America, they pride themselves is on is taking care of the veterans, or trying to take care of the veterans. So we will definitely want to thank you for your service. What you can do is register your company as a veteran-owned business with the federal government.
So you register as a federal, as a veterans-owned business, and then you can have access to a particular set of contracts and grants that no one else can have access to. So that way you can have access to a veteran-owned business. You also can register, you also can get registered as a 8A business, like a small business. So a veteran-owned business, you can also do like a minority business, a 8A. And if you're in the hub zone, you can also register your business as a hub zone. Look up to your area. And I'm certain there's probably an area in Houston that's considered a hub zone. So start your business in one of those hub zones. You're veterans, you can be a veteran-owned business, and you do an 8A small business. So those 3 different types of government contracts that you can apply to that no one else can apply to. And that works on the USAID, it works on the USAID. That certainly works on the Department of Defense, one of the biggest spenders of federal contracts. All the different federal government contracts, you and yourself, it's imperative that you register your business as a veteran-owned business. That's the first step you must do, because that puts you in an advantage over others who won't be able to apply for some of those same contracts.
Okay, much appreciated.
No problem. I'm asking you to unmute yourself and state your name, where you're calling from.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Boniface Pedius, and I'm calling from Tanzania. And I'm a co-founder of Preaward of Youth Development. It's an NGO. I'm very thankful for your presentation. I have nothing to ask than requesting you to share the slide you shared that could be helpful for us, because some of us, we have a new NGO, but we expect to do the best from your presentation. So I just request you to share us the image you invited us.
I will certainly do that. Today's Thursday. You'll have it certainly by Monday. Certainly by Monday. Monday is a federal holiday in the U.S. It's Memorial Day, but you'll certainly have it by Monday.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Adjua, you have a question? And if no other question, we'll go ahead and conclude in this presentation. But the notes will be out. I certainly appreciate you all for coming. And go ahead, Adjua. What would you like to say? What question would you like? Say your name.
Thank you so much, sir. It's Adjua again. So
you spoke earlier, yeah.
Do the subcontractors get the opportunity to have a debrief from the primes? And then also, do you have a platform where you teach aside the one I just chanced on this? I don't remember when, and I signed on. So do you have a platform where you regularly have sessions?
Yes. What a subcontractor work with the prime, and the prime applies. So the prime will be the one who get the debrief. So you can attend the debriefing session with the prime, but the subcontractor wouldn't have his own debriefing with USAID. The USAID only cares about the prime. Yeah, it's the USAID and the prime, and everyone under the prime, the USAID doesn't really know about, or doesn't really, they care about, but they don't really, they focus primarily on the prime. So, and then the prime hires the different subcontractors that actually do the work. So that's how that typically goes. But yes, you can go to my YouTube. I have a ton of videos. I have videos. I know you said you're in Africa. I have videos about the African Growth Opportunity Act, about how to export products from the U.S. to Africa. I have a lot of videos on it. We have over 10,000 views on that. I have how to invest into African startups, passively invest. I have the video about doing large infrastructure projects on Africa. Just go there and type in Africa. Go to my Global Media YouTube channel. Let me put a link in the video. Oh, I can also put a link to many Africa law videos, but particularly for you, I know a lot of people from Africa are here. Let me go. Give me 1 second. I'll find the link for that. That's a link to many of the deep dives into African law videos, but I also have some pertaining to the Caribbean as well. Just go to my YouTube channel. I put a link for my YouTube channel in here as well. And just subscribe to my YouTube, and I post videos fairly frequently. So subscribe to those. And any ideas, any topics you would like for me to talk about, just send me an email, send me a message. But again, I thank you all for coming. I've enjoyed my time. And I hope you all have learned. We discussed many things. I mean, we discussed a lot. I mean, you should have a strong foundational base on how to do business with the USAID. We know what the USAID is, know it is founded. We know the type of projects they are part of. We know different contracts and agreements you'll be coming into contact with. We know prime and subcontractors, how to work with prime and subcontractors, and different ports that you'll come into contact with. So thank you all again, and enjoy the rest of your day.